What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. On this week's episode, I interviewed Pierre Corbin. Pierre is the director of the film The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin. So obviously, the Great Reset in the Bitcoin space is something we're very, very aware of. If you're not aware of it, though, you should start paying attention and maybe Googling the Great Reset to see what that is all about and what Klaus Schwab and all of them want us to live in the 10 years from now. So um Pierre does a great job of breaking that down in the movie, and so I strongly recommend you guys check it out. You can watch the movie actually on Movies Plus, and it's free. You don't have to be a subscriber to watch it. It's under our free content banner on Movies Plus. So yeah, download the app, search in the app stores Movies Plus, or go to mymoviesplus.com. You'll be able to watch it there. And hope you guys enjoy that movie. And then I hope you enjoy this conversation I had with Pierre because I really enjoyed it. We met down in Miami. And yeah, just he's an up and coming filmmaker and Bitcoiner. I mean, he's probably been around Bitcoin longer than I have, so he's not up and coming. But yeah, the conversation we had was pretty good. How he went from his full time job to switching everything and becoming a filmmaker and a Bitcoiner full time. So really enjoyed it, and also thanks to our sponsor Bitbox, the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet from Shift Crypto. Thanks again for the support as always, and I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. Where are you based in Europe or?
Yeah, so I just travel for the past 10 months. I've just been traveling, so not really based anywhere. But before that, I used to live in Poland, in Warsaw, and that's where I am right now as well. So I came here for a couple of weeks. I mean, I'll be in Florida next week, but other than that, I'll be here
Yeah.
for the weeks after that, I think.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. So
yeah.
are you going back to Florida for something Bitcoin related or?
So my film was selected for the Sunscreen Film Festival. So I'm gonna
Oh, nice.
head there to, I don't know, network, see what it's like. Yeah, I can't miss on an opportunity like this one.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I know that film festival well. I've traveled the film festival circuit. Haven't done it in the last couple of years for obvious reasons, but yeah, it's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, so I've never been. So plus being there as one of the filmmakers, I think it'll be cool.
Oh yeah, no, it's fun. It's good fun.
Mm.
So I guess to start, before we get into your film in particular, what got you what's your background? Because you weren't when we met at the conference, you said you were you weren't a filmmaker, you had to leave your profession. So what did you do before Bitcoin and before filmmaking?
Yeah, so I was a consultant in tech. So I used to work for Accenture, and I was working with different kinds of clients, supposedly focusing on high tech clients and then software and platforms. Yeah, I don't know, did price for Microsoft, just big corporations basically. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but at the same time, I was into Bitcoin. And eventually, there was just a moment where I was kind of thinking, okay, it's either I do this for this huge corporation or I can try and do this for the world, And I thought, okay, you know what? Screw this. Let's go and try and work on Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So what was your rabbit hole story? How did you discover Bitcoin,
Yeah, so 2017, when there was, the big run that happened then,
Hmm.
that's when I got into crypto as a whole, not even just Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And I just ran this bull run, and it was fun, exciting, learning a lot of stuff, making some money, but then turned out to be a lot of shit coins and not making that money.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's what happens then, right? Is the bear market happens, and you just end up your time a lot less focused on looking at the charts and trying to, find the next, shitcoin that will make you rich. Like then you actually start to study this, and you end up realizing that the only thing that is actually worth studying is Bitcoin, because every other project is either, useless because it doesn't have the same fundamentals, or is gone in 6 months. So
Yep.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I started then just digging into Bitcoin 100%. Uh,
And what was your shitcoin of choice? And I bring this up just because maybe it'll help anyone else that's out there dabbling and they feel guilty about dabbling in shitcoins. I think that most of us have our shitcoin history. You know, everybody did it at one point, and then like you said, you kind of realize the only one that's really worth it. So like, were you just like kind of doing a like, hey, spread it across, you know, diversify your investment type thing, or
Yeah, so I mean, not too big of a diversification, but yeah, I mean, I studied finance, and that's the kind of stuff that they teach you at uni, right? So everything about
mm-hmm.
diversification and so on. So me as a good student coming out of this, then I thought that if I'm now investing into this, the rules should be the same, and I should diversify. So I had a bunch of them. I don't know. One of them, wait, it was like I forgot the name, but it was supposed to be like a decentralized internet kind of thing. Yeah, some shitcoin, like pure shitcoin. But I fell for it, and it seemed like the team was doing good progress, and in the end, nothing happened. And the only thing you're left with is this shitcoin that is worth zero or close to.
Yeah, yeah, and you end up sitting on these bags of, I mean, God, you know how many people. I think back to it was about this time last year whenever like the Doge meme was really taking
Mm,
off. And I think I even mentioned it on the podcast that like this felt really bad. Like, you know, I was at the like T-ball meetings, you know, like baseball for like for my son and stuff. And like other dads are sitting there and they're asking me like, hey, you know, what do you think of this Doge thing? You know, you think it's gonna go up? And I'm like, no, it's not. You know, and I mean, I don't even remember what the price was at that point. It could have been like 50 cents or something like that, a Doge. And now it's like, I don't even check prices, but I think I saw somebody post that it was like 14 cents. You know what I
mm.
mean? So it's just like, I hope that people don't learn that. And that's what like, or don't have to learn that way, you know,
Yeah,
like by
yeah,
getting wrecked, you
that's the
know,
hard
and
way.
yeah, exactly. And like, so you're in this many years before me, and I credit people like you and other plebs that we all like have learned from because I'm class of 2020.
Mhm.
So you know, it's just a little over 2 years now that I've been invested in it, and that's what sucked me down the rabbit hole. But like, you know, those that came before us made the mistakes so that we didn't have to get wrecked, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's still the people that you know they chase it and try to going after fiat gains.
Mhm.
Um, so okay, so that's your Bitcoin story, and that's how you get into Bitcoin. But you're you're working in the software and tech, and you make the abrupt change to filmmaker, and I guess
Yeah.
tell people about what how that came across or how you came about that and the name of your movie is um the Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin, which we're going to work out together to get on Movies Plus, and you can see it on YouTube and everything. But yeah, tell people about how what made you make that change and becoming a filmmaker. One thing going all into Bitcoin full time, but like then you also went from tech to filmmaker. So where did that come from?
Yeah, so I always loved cinema. I was always into films. I remember wanting to join a cinema school at some point, which didn't happen because I ended up traveling abroad and studying there. But even there, that was in Australia, in Sydney. I did a film course, just a 6 month film course to at least get a feel of it. And I worked on some bunch of small like filmmaking projects I could do at home. So it's always something that I thought was pretty cool. And then, when I quit my job, it's also, the kind of format that you kind of do a presentation and then animate this, talk over it and record. Like that's the kind of stuff that I had done for some clients as part of my previous job as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would do whatever clients needed. And so I kind of I felt very comfortable anyway approaching it this way, doing simple animations, animating them and recording this. So, when I quit my job, I was thinking, okay, I want to work on Bitcoin. That's awesome. That's cool. Good, Pierre.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, but what can you actually do? Yeah? And I don't know. I thought of my skill set. I even listed out an entire, like I love, Excel and Google Sheets. So I listed out kind of my skill sets and what are the interesting things that I could do in Bitcoin, and there was a lot of studying there, obviously, because anyway, most of the stuff you have to do as a Bitcoiner is continuously study. And yeah, and so that's kind of what I did for the first 3 months after quitting my job. I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of reading stuff, listening to as much content as possible, getting as much information as I could, including the more technical stuff because I'm also a developer. So I was really looking at all the different ways I could go with this, and yeah, and I don't know, eventually. I watched the documentary and I got the crazy idea of why not making my own. And I started, really thinking of a story. I wrote everything down and just started editing to see if, if I make 10 minutes out of it, what is the flow? How does it feel? Do I feel like I would be able to do something that is good all the way? And, I thought that it was all right. I showed it to people around me. Everyone said that, yeah, it was, seemed interesting. And that just motivated me to keep on going and follow the same process, and little by little you end up with a film kind of. So I knew all the how to edit on a tool like Premiere Pro. I knew how to make certain animations, and so little by little I just managed to get the work done.
And yeah, it just the funny thing too is you could, I'm sure, just keep going and have kept adding content, but at some point you're like, okay, I gotta cap this, I guess, because
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. So especially if you think of Bitcoin, I mean, every week there's a next story, a next reason why Bitcoin is better. And when you're working on this, it feels like there's always more you can add, and then that's how it went. Because at first I wasn't planning on necessarily making this full feature documentary, 1 hour 20 minutes. Like I just didn't know how I was gonna really approach it and do it. But it's just little by little. No, I was just writing while I was also, doing the editing and recording, very, work as I go kind of, and that's how more ideas and new topics ended up entering the film.
And so talk a little bit about the Great Reset, because that's obviously, it's in the title, so it's a big part of the film. And I think it's one of those things that as Bitcoiners we all discover because of Bitcoin. But in your investigation and everything in creating the film, what did you learn?
So the Great Reset in general, yeah, because the film doesn't talk about it in general, but in general, it's this initiative that was, started by, or at least, put in forward in the media by Klaus Schwab, which is the guy from the World Economic Forum. And there's a lot of topics around this in terms of what it means, and a lot of them, make you go down a certain rabbit hole. There's many different ones. It's
Hmm.
like a different like not just one tree that takes you down the rabbit hole, but there's all the trees around, that's and you can choose which direction you go with. And the one that I decided to go with for the film was the financial part of it, and how this is going to impact everyone. And the Great Reset financially means the end of finance the way we understand it now, and particularly the end of our current monetary system, because the US dollar is coming to an end, and there's a lot of things that involve this, including, and this is what I focus on a lot in the film, inflation and how it will impact everyone. So, just the money supply and how it increases, and the impact this has on inflation, and the impact it can have on everyone. And then it also covers CBDCs, which are central bank digital currencies, which are part of this Great Reset and are part of what they hope to push down onto
Hmm.
people, which is especially if you compare it to the alternative that we have, that is Bitcoin, then CBDCs are, the end of freedom. So it's important to point it out, to mention it, because there isn't so much content that wraps around this story so neatly to allow everyone to understand that it is coming. This is why, and this is what it means, and then present Bitcoin as the alternative to all of that.
Hmm. And so I assume you did you know a lot about the Great Reset before you started digging into that part of it, or was
Um,
it kind of an
so
eye-opening experience?
Uh, yeah, I mean, yes and no, because again, I was trying to focus only on the monetary and financial part of it.
Hmm.
So a lot of this I already understood. Of course, there's a lot of research that goes into making a film, especially if, like me, you're kind of, you know, editing as you're writing, then obviously,
Hmm.
your research will influence what you go for next. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff wrapped around this, and I was even wondering, should I add these kind of things in my film, right? Particularly I was thinking of you know um, showing all the people that are involved in this financial system and this transition that we're going to have, and do a deep dive into their own personal history, and because a lot of them are involved in some fraud stories, and try and push it this like in this direction, but sometimes you have to put the brakes on and
Leave
remain
that for a
focused.
next movie, right?
Yeah, exactly, and just remain focused on the one thing, which you know the end goal, really, the purpose of the film was for people to understand our economic system and our economic failure, and why Bitcoin could be a good alternative for them to consider. So I always, even though there was more ideas coming from all over the place as to what I could add, I always had to, just remember to keep it just to this, because otherwise you go off topic and you can lose the audience.
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard to keep it streamlined,
Mhm.
especially whenever there's so much to talk about. Um, so what did you what do you think is happening right now? Because you got to look at the Great Reset pretty closely and obviously get into Bitcoin. And I kind of likened it to like what I've been telling people is that there's this huge plan in place by these very few people, the families that run the world or whatever. And Bitcoin is destroying their plan, the control that they've had. And I think that they're just basically flipping out like petulant children, and trying to throw the kitchen sink at us. So like what do you think of, you know, like how are they reacting to the people that are perpetrating and putting this in place, the Great Reset? How do you think they're trying to throw the kitchen sink at us just because of Bitcoin, or is Bitcoin a main part of it, or is it multiple things that they're because I feel like there's a lot coming at us right now.
There is, right? There is there, but at the same time, it depends on what side of the world and what kind of opinions you are open or closed to, because there are other regions that you would think would be the biggest enemies of Bitcoin that seem to open up. And by that, I mean the US right now. It's very likely a trapdoor to, open everything up for CBDCs, like likely, right? But the way they're approaching it now is general enough, and there's the states, like particular states in the US, that are very accepting of this and becoming more and more accepting, and doing tax incentives for Bitcoin miners and other businesses. So there's some positive out there, right? I think the more negative comes mostly from Europe, unfortunately. But then again, that's where um, the guy that runs the World Economic Forum comes from. So
Yeah.
so maybe he just has a bigger grasp here. But yeah, I think the major thing that they're doing is fighting Bitcoin through CBDCs, because I think we're past the point where they understand they can't do anything about Bitcoin. Like, it's anyway going to happen. What they can do is they can trash talk it, yeah? And they can
Hmm.
try, but I mean, the amount of FUD that has always come to Bitcoin has always been, beaten up and left behind. And it's anyway the same FUD that keeps on coming back, just under a different headline, a different
Hmm.
date. Like, so in the end, I think, if anything, they're slowing down hyper Bitcoinization, but because of the rules of open networks, Bitcoin is anyway going to, get past it. what they're pushing for, though, is CBDCs, social credit score, like all this, very communist and control focused actions, which we have to block, and I think us as Bitcoiners are in a very good position to try and do that because we have the right knowledge to explain why it's wrong and why it takes away freedom and why people should pay attention and not just let it happen and accept it blindly as we always do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like we don't question things. We just, "Oh, okay, yeah." I mean, that's I've been thinking about like I think one of my fears is that people are gonna get like they realize like you said that they can't stop Bitcoin, so they're going to basically try and cast a net. Like if Bitcoin's here, they're going to cast a big net above it as wide as they can to try and catch people on their way to Bitcoin to basically say, no, this is Bitcoin, really. Like you don't really need that. It's the base layer and it'll whatever, but you come over here, use this CBDC, use this shiny new thing. And hence why I think there's like 15,000 shitcoins that get, backed by venture capitalists and nation states and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
um, do you think that that's a concern going forward here?
So kind of. Now, one of the things that I show in my film are three actions taken by central banks during deleveraging events, and it's based off the theory that was laid out by Ray Dalio in his video "How the Economic Machine Works." And so there's three things that they do. Number one is lower interests. Number two is to just print money, right? And number three is to increase welfare spending. And I go through the whole data in the film, but in many countries, we're above 30% of GDP that goes for welfare spending. Okay? And this has increased mostly from after the First World War that happened in Europe, and that's when just before the First World War when our economies went off the gold standard, and after that point is when welfare spending started increasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we entered our new fiat infinity monetary system, yeah? And now it's only increasing. And the thing is that governments eventually, once they create their CBDC, their control money, their take away your freedom money, then rather than help people financially by distributing, let's say in the eurozone, euros to their citizens that need it, then they can just start distributing this CBDC and force this adoption upon these people. And so if you have 34 in France, there's 34% of GDP that goes for welfare spending, then that's already 34% of the economy that could rely 100% on CBDCs for just their own prosperity or just life.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it even worse because it's 100% coming. I don't see why they would adopt another strategy that's literally the goal. Creating inflation will increase this welfare spending, which means that it allows the government to have direct control over the citizens that need the government. So we'll always back the government, and then be able to distribute a universal basic income through their CBDC that removes even more freedoms and makes these people even more reliant on the governments. So yeah, I don't know. I see this as the best strategy for governments, and I think that's ultimately what's going to be pushed. And wherever they've progressed with any idea of CBDC, that's kind of the way it's been looking.
Mm. Yeah, I think that they really probably wanted to do this in like 10 years, but they've had to speed up their timeline. Is that something
Yeah,
you're
I think
seeing?
so. But I think for two reasons, right? One of them is Bitcoin, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that they've realized that, okay, it's been 13 years. This thing still works the same way. It works definitely better now. They've got like this, I can imagine someone, like Bitcoin, wait, they've got the Lightning Network. What is this thing? Reading it and then going like, oh shit.
Oh crap! No.
Yeah. And yeah, so I think this, of course, pushes them to accelerate this rolling out of CBDCs, but at the same time, we're, at this point where people need, I mean, soon people will start realizing that inflation is there not because of Putin, right? It's because of what already happened years before that in terms of monetary supply and what continues to happen. I think it's Dylan Leclerc that tweeted this the other day, saying that it's that during Weimar Germany, they ignored the effects of increasing the money supply on inflation, right? And this led to a war, right? Because there's a moment where there's too much inflation, that this is the kind of stuff that happens because you need a reset of some sort. You need an excuse to be able to continue pushing more money into the system and supporting the entire system the way it is, and which allows to lower the value of the debt that has been accumulated all this time, right? But I forgot where I was going with that.
No, no. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
but
mean, it's basically the direction that we're headed with the hyperinflation.
yeah, all right. So, because the second point is that they need to give an alternative that will be able to leave all this debt behind that has been accumulated, right? And if you manage to give people an alternative that will be CBDCs that for well, the entire fire starts calming down, you give them an alternative that seems to be less impacted by inflation, then, it's easy to transition there. It's like, let's just move on to this bright, green grass, and the other part can just burn little by little. And individuals will support governments for that because they're not the ones that are necessarily going to be suffering from it. It's going to be mostly, businesses, corporations, institutions that, are the ones that have to suffer this entire debt.
Mm-hmm. This episode is brought to you by the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet. It is made by Shift Crypto, and it is very easy, user-friendly. It takes about 5 minutes to set up your Bitbox. It also is open source, including the firmware on the Bitbox O2 and the Bitbox app. And then also there's x-rays of the hardware in the schematics. And it comes in a Bitcoin only version. So the Bitbox O2 hardware wallet, you can get the Bitcoin only version, and that has a limited firmware and only supports Bitcoin. So the less code means less attack surface, which further improves your security when only storing Bitcoin. Get the Bitbox hardware wallet at shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple. And if you use the promo code Bitcoin made simple in all caps, you get 5% off. And I cannot recommend it enough because I use it and I'm actually addicted to using it. And I keep sending Bitcoin off of exchanges to the hardware wallet, like literally every time. If I do my little DCA or my little smash buy, even $100, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just send that over to the hardware wallet. So get it at shiftcrypto.ch/Bitcoin made simple and use Bitcoin made simple as the promo code to get 5% off.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, if we don't get a handle on it, it's going to get ugly. And my fear is just for the average person that they haven't really paid attention. I mean, people are starting to go, whoa, no, like it actually at Easter, like family get togethers, hearing different family members say something like, finally for the first time in like 2 years, when I mentioned like, they printed all this money and there's like twice the number of dollars chasing after the same number of goods and services. And they were like, yes, exactly. And I was like, whoa, somebody finally agreed with me. Like they're starting to notice because like
yeah, man, I
I
know that.
tried telling 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
the prices of things were getting hidden and pushed in different places, and but now it's the chickens are coming home to roost, if you will. Um, so what do you think is going on with like I don't know, like they keep talking about food shortages, and like, do you think that's something that's coming?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, food shortage. Even earlier, I was showing to my girlfriend even a thread of how many. I was telling her that's a new conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
There was a
yeah.
thread of how in the past like month, the past few weeks, there was just in the U.S. I don't know how many in total, but over 10 different big food suppliers that were just, burning, some even a plane crashed on one of the buildings, and it just lowers the available food out there and so on. But to this, you had the fact that there's a war happening, the fact that there's China that has lockdowns right now, and no ships are leaving China, or like I think an estimated 30% less ships are leaving China for the rest of the world. So we already have two huge exporters that will not send their products abroad, right? And I mean, a lot of it is also because most of the world doesn't accept products from one of them, which is Russia, right? Apart from gas, right? So yeah, I mean, there's just so many reasons for there to be food shortages, and the thing is that if we're in a very hyperinflationary environment or just very high inflation, then if there's too much money, then you end up with a shortage of goods. So even just the economical, monetary reasons behind it tell you there's going to be a food shortage, right? Every other headline is either more wood for the fire, or it's just part of this same message, right? And I think it's going to continue definitely until something happens with these prices, because with this inflation, because high inflation always comes with shortages.
Do you think that the high inflation, I mean, there's people talking about, do you think it's going to be Weimar level where it just absolutely goes and runs, and like all of a sudden, it's $100 a gallon of gasoline? Or do you think it's going to they're going to keep, doing everything they can? The way I kind of think about it, I feel like they know that the house is on fire and it's condemned, and they're just trying to slow it down until the Bitcoin fire truck shows up,
Yeah.
or the life raft,
Yeah. Well, although I mean, I agree with you, but the people that are hoping on the Bitcoin life raft are not the governments, though, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah. So I think what was your question again? Sorry, because
Well, like, do you think we'll see Weimar level
all right.
hyperinflation?
It's basically, I want to say yes. Of course, you don't know, right? Because things can change. But if the central banks do start increasing interest rates and start really tightening and making it harder for this money to be printed, then we're certainly entering, financial crisis, recession for the next few years, and every price is going to drop towards zero.
What
The
do you
only
think that does for the
question,
price of Bitcoin?
I think short term, it hurts the price of Bitcoin. I think long term, it's good for the price of Bitcoin, because if you're an asset manager, then or even a small family, business, a money manager, used to always follow the 60-40 portfolio rule, right? So 60% in equities, 40% in bonds. And right now, this clearly doesn't make sense, right? Because bonds are worthless. They're, in some places they're negative yielding. So, it's really, what's the point of them even existing? And but anyway, that's not a
Your
topic.
money's going to lose value, but at a less rate than, that's basically
Yeah,
what they're saying. And not that fast, just,
yeah.
0.5%.
Yeah, and so the thing is that if you have a situation where they increase interest rates, therefore there's the stock market that drops, there's real estate that drops, there's bonds again are not even an option. So you have to take your money out of all of these positions, and you can't hold cash, because in order to limit the damage and the high prices that are here anyway, and inflation is always a lagging indicator. Yeah, it comes years after it happened. We're seeing now the effects of what started, well, I mean, years ago, but more, closely 2020, which is when this super aggressive printing started, right? So it's only going to get worse if you think about it, and we don't know what's going to be in 2 years. So they anyway have to continue printing for that, yet the prices of assets drop. So where do you go? There is one asset that will always be increasing against some inflating fiat currencies, and I think that's Bitcoin, which at the same time is the fastest growing assets in the history of finance. It's an open network, just like the internet, that has all of these use cases that make it anyway the tool that we have that has to be there for transacting and as a store of value. So yeah, I think short term it will impact Bitcoin, but just to open up the opportunity for others to enter and need the price higher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We need that opportunity for the new classes to come in and not be, so far behind. I agree.
no.
Now, I wonder about, the mind virus that is Bitcoin, and
Mm.
how it enters your brain and just all of a sudden you're like, wow, everything else doesn't make sense. So what was like your family and friends reactions to you leaving your career to become a filmmaker talking about Bitcoin? Like, were people like, okay, this is just a phase? Is he going through a quarter life crisis or midlife? What in the world is going on here?
So I guess, a mix depending on who it was. But I think in general, everyone was quite supportive,
That's awesome.
because they knew that I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for, like, people know that I'm usually quite good at making decisions about my own life. So they were very supportive about it. They, were just more projecting themselves into my decision and explaining why it's not something they would do. But they
Yep.
weren't questioning the fact I was, deciding to do this. There was just, I would never be able to quit and just live off my investments and, this kind of thing. But at the same time, it's not like I approached it like I'm retiring and I'm
Yeah.
just chill in the Bahamas till the end of my life. No, like the idea is anyway to um, build up the skills and the network to make sure that I work on the future of our world. And I mean, it's only positive, right? So there's
Yeah.
there was in general a lot of support, a lot of surprises as well. I remember the first conversation when I told my parents that I quit my job. They knew nothing about. I mean, they knew that I was into Bitcoin, obviously, right? Yes, but yeah, they didn't know that I had this idea, and I told them, yeah, I think. I mean, I quit, and my dad spent all his life, working a corporate career that was, a very successful career for him, and so he was a bit like, okay, wait, but so you don't have any plans beyond that? You don't have like another job waiting for you? I was like, no, 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 I'm gonna find it
Yep.
out by myself.
Yeah. Well, take it from me. I did that probably like 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it was the smartest decision of my life. But yeah, it's certainly eye-opening to people where they just go, where's your next paycheck coming from? And they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
just so many people can't live that way, like,
Yeah.
and they just like I think it's something with Bitcoin as we start to like it's like I was a Bitcoiner before I knew it,
Mm.
because like you just start to like lower your time preference, whereas like if you're, some people have to live paycheck to paycheck, and I understand that, but like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, then like you really have a high time preference. You're just making it to the next day, like you're just focused on tomorrow. Um and it's it's funny to see people have that stark reaction, but that's awesome that you had the support though, because like I know a lot of people could be like, whoa, what are you doing here? But you seem similar to me, where like I'm very calculated
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
like think everything through from like every possible attack vector, which is also another similarity of Bitcoiners, like early-ish adopters. um I don't want to try and claim and sound like I've been around here for a long time, um but you know the like my parents are like, I don't completely understand it, but like I know you wouldn't just do this and like be
Yeah.
an idiot.
Without reason.
But it's
Yeah.
funny then, because then they also start to like, because just people in general start to like go like, what if this thing goes belly up? And you're like,
It's not.
yeah, it's impossible. Like I spent 10,000 hours focusing on this. It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
I'm glad to hear there's someone else out there that's dealing with those same questions
I
and
think,
everything.
yeah, I think most Bitcoiners, and I think it's not even, yeah, the more you study Bitcoin, the more this happens, I think.
Yeah,
Because then more people know that that's what you're into and they will just, challenge, question, or just out of curiosity, right? I don't mean they do this, with some
not
bad
malintent. Yeah,
intentions. Yeah.
yeah,
But
um,
yeah, I think every Bitcoiner has that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, so oh, I want to ask. Well, I want to get into more stuff on like the geopolitical end, but first, what's it like in Warsaw? Like, have you been there for the most of the pandemic?
Yeah, I was here until June last year. And well, I've been coming back. Like I was here also in September and November and for Christmas, so I come every few weeks. I come back here for 10 days to 2 weeks.
Nice.
And yeah, for the pandemic, well, it sucked. Then again, I guess it sucked kind of everywhere.
Yeah, it's like
Here, slightly less so though. There was I mean, there was a push to have everyone vaccinated, but nothing. I mean, there was no enforcing or no, vaccine passes. And even now, there's zero restrictions whatsoever. I mean, even like in buses, in any kind of I mean, yeah, there's just as if COVID wasn't there anymore. They're still, opening up for vaccines for whoever wants to have them, sure. But other than that, they're pretty chill. And during most of the pandemic, it seemed like Poland was more chill than other countries,
yeah.
particularly in Europe, comparing to France, to Germany, to Italy. I think these are the.
I would think that Poland's gonna do the opposite of what Germany does, just based off, just based
Yeah,
off of history.
yeah. I guess so, right? We'll see. It's kind of interesting in Poland because the the political party that is in power now is the one you'd expect the worst from,
Hmm.
and because it's extreme, it's like extreme right. I mean, yeah, it's a weird kind of, anyway, for many different topics.
Yeah.
But they didn't do any of the bad things I consider that something like the French government put in place, even though they have, supposedly a great president and a great party, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's that's the funny thing that was, to be observed, I think, here in Poland.
It's interesting. I was because you said you've been traveling so much. I'm like, man, like Poland must be a lot more lax than most of the world. I don't even know. I haven't even looked into it what it would be like for me to leave the states.
Mhm.
Because I just figured if starting 2 years ago, I was like, I won't be leaving for a while, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe I need to start digging back into that. And I just saw the mask mandates were pulled, so we'll see what
Mhm.
happens there on international travel.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spoil anything that you could potentially be working on or interested in, but you can divulge as much as you want. But I know we had a little conversation about the geopolitics of Bitcoin and what's going on, especially in Central and Latin America. So, what are you willing to share about what you see going on?
Um, about the actual situation.
That,
That,
and if you want to share anything, potential things that you want to do or whatever, you're free to share. I just don't want to,
yeah, of course, yeah. So I think, yeah. So I'm thinking, I'm early stages, as we talked about, of figuring out how I could make a second film happen, right? And yeah, I'd like it to be focused more on what's happening in Central America, because this is where there's well, first off, there's El Salvador that has Bitcoin as legal tender, and there's other countries that have politicians that have spoken up about, being positive, liking this idea, maybe moving towards Bitcoin as legal tender kind of way of working, but no one has done that step yet, right? But
hmm
what I do know is that there is a lot of pressure in that region from the US, particularly from basically the actors that don't want a world working under a Bitcoin standard to happen. And, I mean, it's mostly the US that is fighting this, and they're fighting this on many different fronts, right? Bitcoin is one that I think they just started fighting now. There's the petrodollar front that has been existing for decades now, right? And many wars were a result of this and the fact that energy has to be sold in US dollar, right? So there's anyway always these actors that are there trying to handle their own interests and make sure that certain markets work in particular ways. Now, they have also participated a lot in exporting the US dollar and have pushed this towards Central America and South America as well. And there's a lot of economies there that work based off the US dollar, or if they don't, you can still almost pay for everything in US dollar there. And so they're putting a lot of pressure in that region for Bitcoin not to be adopted because it would be a big hub. The president from El Salvador is the most popular president in the country in the modern history of El Salvador, and is also the most popular president in the entire region. And he's working on trying to reunify this region economically, right? There used to be one country that separated, and he's working on a just economical reunification for these, countries to be, together stronger. And I think it would be very interesting to study why this is happening and explain this entire move of the US dollar towards the region globally as well, explain the petrodollar because it's an amazing story in terms of understanding, just monetary policy around the world, geopolitics. I think just this makes it fascinating, and then focus on Central America where there is this Bitcoin adoption and why it's being blocked, and then present why it shouldn't be blocked, why the actual thing that is happening by blocking Bitcoin is blocking freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I think there's a great story there, a lot of research to be done with very interesting things, and I'm looking forward to trying and do this research and working with other Bitcoiners to do so. So again, still very early stage, I'm trying to figure out who can help in that, in what way, and how we can all collaborate together, and then hopefully be able to get some funding and start rolling.
And so, you're seeing Bukele in El Salvador. I mean, he was supposed to come to Miami and then he didn't. Do you
Mm.
think that's like anything fishy going on there? And like all of a sudden there's all kinds of like gang violence in El Salvador. And, because if
Well,
you think about like, I mean, just going down, putting on my tinfoil hat,
mm,
you know, all these countries that have become dollarized because, El Salvador got rid of their currency. So they use the dollar.
mm,
Um, it's almost like, it's almost like the the cryptocurrency known as the US dollar is legal tender in a bunch of these countries. And it's it's like a true altcoin where it takes advantage of the people that use it. And Bitcoin's coming in and making a level fair playground. Um, or playing field playground. What about it?
mm,
But so they're leveling the playing field, and kind of like we said with the new world order, the World Economic Forum's Great Reset. Do you think the U.S. is trying to muddy things up to be like, whoa, 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 we like you guys using the dollar. Don't use this Bitcoin thing. And I just found it odd that Bukele had to cancel his trip to the U.S. I don't know. Am
mm.
I crazy?
Um, yes, no, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So I think that, but so okay. First off, Bouquet not coming to Miami. I think it was the logical choice in the sense that there is this, big gang problem that is now all over the media there, because of, these big killings that happened, and therefore the government just went all in and stopping. I think the other day I saw that in 21 days they arrested like 12,000 people, which is crazy.
Wow.
And so state of emergency in the entire country. I think it just, it wouldn't have been reasonable for Bukele. Like I think the media and the opposition would have gone hard against him. That
Mm-hmm.
there's all this stuff happening at home, but you decide to go and play and talk Bitcoin with like because for locals, Bitcoin is not important. They know Bitcoin is there. They all receive their thing in Chivo wallets. A lot of them, withdrew it instantly, and they don't care about Bitcoin because they're mostly poor. It's a small economy, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. So they just don't care. And when there's this big thing happening in the country, and your president all of a sudden goes off to
Leaves.
party in Miami and just talk Bitcoin, which for them is not an important topic, then I think it just wouldn't look good. Yeah. So I think that's why. Now, when you talk about, your tinfoil hat and the killings that were there, I mean, we don't know what happened. What we do know is that this kind of stuff provoked by the US has happened already many times around the world, right? And in the region as well. And most of the gangs that exist in Central and South America were put there by the US. I mean, they were armed by the US. They were like, so in the end, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that they did something like that, but we don't know. But this is why I would also want to do some research about these topics, because pushing this research, working with other people that help doing research on it, can allow to really dig deep and see how much of the dots are actually connected. Because we have some information, therefore we have four dots, and we connect them. If we have 20 dots, then you can really, go make sure you fill in the space between your original dots, if this makes
Hmm.
sense.
Kind of
And
like one of those like draw by number dot
yeah,
things where
yeah,
like
I had the same image when I explained it. Yeah.
yeah, so it's great minds think alike. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's always I always tell people it's not the crazy theory, but it's not the like self-explanatory simplest explanation. It's somewhere in between. It's not what the media is telling you
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
lie, but it's not the narrative, but it's not the like you go down the way like all the way down. Because like I mean I've seen like whenever if somebody brings up like flat Earth, and I'm just like, okay, I gotta, like, I can't go there with you. Sorry, like,
Yeah.
it's that's a little crazy. You know, but I'm willing to entertain certain things, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah. No, but
interesting.
I think again, as I said, this kind of stuff happened before. With the thing is, we don't have any proof to say whether this time was the same, right? I know that there was apparently, that's what I heard, that the reason there was this mass killing, the official reason that I found, was that there was just big killings because of the fact that the government was cracking down on the national bus lines and wanted to make sure they have control over them because the gangs had control over them.
Hmm.
Therefore, like a few of the people that were killed were bus drivers and other people that were involved somehow with the gangs, but civilians though, not gang members. Yeah, so I don't know. I think yeah, I mean they have a big problem with gangs there anyway, right? So I think yeah, that was just a little drop that made the how do you say it? That like in French at least you have a saying that says that like that's the little drop that made the water flow out of the vase.
Oh yeah, yeah, the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what we.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story on how you got into storytelling. And so we will have arranged something by the time this comes out on Monday, hopefully, to so people want to watch the movie. I mean, you can see it on YouTube, but we're putting it on Movies Plus. And I really am not, just shilling my own company, which I am, but I really strongly encourage people to check it out there, and check out the other Bitcoin content we have, because somebody like Pierre is the type of person that we want to support. Um, so the more support we have in terms of customers, the more support we can give behind content like Pierre's, where, frankly, I'm shocked that it's not censored off of YouTube. Are you surprised by that?
So I think it's not because I made sure to stick only to, monetary stuff, finance stuff. I
Hmm.
think had I opened up the other doors, then it
You
could be
could have,
said.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So That's if you you know, the other thing too, we're freedom of speech maximalists. I say that all the time. So it'd be fun to be able to partner with Pierre and get some more unfiltered thoughts.
Yeah,
And
no, and it's great actually. I'm very happy that my film can be on your platform too. Just opening up the distribution, allowing to make sure that it'll be available always somewhere. That's yeah, that's the best way, the best scenario I can imagine for my film. That's why I made it.
okay, and then the title is The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin by Pierre Corbin, right? Did I say
Yes.
that right? And where can people find you?
On Twitter, just you can search for Pierre Corbin or Pierre, or my at is Cier, so CIERRE Corbin, Porbin. So my name just inverts the first letters.
Oh, nice. I don't think I realized that. Maybe that means I'm like partially backwards dyslexic or something. Because I I just assumed it was spelled correctly. Who knows? But
Yeah,
well, Pierre, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and look forward to doing this again sometime.
yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me. Great talk.
Thanks again to Pierre for coming on, and thanks again to Shift Crypto and their Bitbox O2 hardware wallet for all the support. And I will catch you guys next time.